Back with us on the SportsMax zone. It's a special day. Well, ex-West Indies pacer, Sir Curtly Ambrose, has added his voice to the debate over whether the West Indies selectors should stick with Shai Hope for the deciding third test against England at Old Trafford starting Friday. Hope has struggled in England, a fact acknowledged by the head coach Phil Simmons. Now, according to Ambrose, Hope may benefit from sitting out the third test. He says, maybe in the next game we should rest him so he can regain some confidence. If you keep playing him and he keeps failing, it will only get worse. You are going to destroy him if it continues like that. I think he's a fantastic player, but this is not doing his confidence any good. Are the West Indies going to go with him again? It's a tough call. Well, the Windies assistant coach, Roddy Estwick, he spoke with reporters today about preparations heading into the all-important match.
Usual bonus of having 25 players here with you. Are you able to consider the reserve players for selection for the last test, or are you limiting yourself, to the squad of 15?
I can't answer that. That's a decision for the selectors and the head coach to decide if they're going to go outside the original touring party. Obviously, with the situation as it was when we left the region, we had to travel with a group of 25 people. So we will see what happens there. Obviously, we'll have a discussion with the head selector and see what they come up with. Obviously, most of the boys have gone well. I've really been surprised how well the seamers have gone. We discuss all 15 players and we try and make sure that we keep all 15 players as prepared as possible and they're ready in case they call, because we're not sure what the combination is going to be. We're going to look at all the combinations, you're going to look at the pitch, and then once you do all those things, then you can make a decision selection-wise.
That's Roddy Estwick. Well, joining us now for a discussion about the West Indies is a Liverpudlian who has been exiled in Trinidad and Tobago since birth. He goes by the name Fazir Mohammed. Fazir, good afternoon. Welcome to the SportsMax Zone, sir.
I like the introduction. I actually like the introduction this time. Good evening, everyone.
There you go. Fazir, just before we deal with the cricket, though, it is needful to ask, if you didn't find it necessary to perhaps don something red, something Liverpoolish today. I know you have Liverpool gear. I'm certain you have Liverpool gear. And I'm just asking on behalf of one of my cameramen, a fellow Liverpool supporting football fan, why is Fazir not, paying tribute to what the team has achieved this season?
Well, for me, being presented with the trophy is just the icing on the cake. I mean, the cake was properly baked just about 3 weeks ago when they actually clinched the title by virtue of Man City not being able to pull off the result that they wanted. But yes, there's tremendous satisfaction. But one of the drawbacks of being old, Georgie, is that I predate the Premier League and I was able to enjoy the glory years. So yes, it's been a long wait, but while it's tremendously exciting to actually be able to experience success again, the fact that it's an empty stadium, the lack of atmosphere and so on, but still a title is a title. And I'm celebrating quietly inside. Given my advanced years, I can't afford too much excitement.
Oh my goodness, very well said, sir, very well said. Just to say before we go into the cricket now, when Liverpool won the first division as it was in 1989 under Kenny Dalglish, I was in grade 3 in primary school. Now, my daughter has long passed grade 3 in prep school. So it's been a very long time, a hell of a long time between innings. And I'm just happy for Liverpool all. Speaking of a long time between innings, Fazir, it's been a long time since the last classy Shai Hope innings. Or forget classy, it's been a long time since the last substantial Shai Hope innings. And people are saying, based on his numbers, and we examined those numbers on the show yesterday, based on the numbers, Shai Hope ought to be rested for this decisive test on Friday. Where do you stand?
I think he should be dropped. I don't know why we have this fear of saying that players are not performing and they should be set aside or dropped. Because what is the point of having a competitive environment if you're afraid, or if you don't want to, or if you feel that there's a legacy of an outstanding performance from 3 years ago? Granted, he's performing brilliantly in one-day internationals. He averages over 50. But just look at the numbers, and you would have pointed it out already in your previous analysis. The fact remains that Shai Hope is not scoring the runs that is demanded of a top order batsman. You can't be averaging in the mid-20s and expect to hold on to your place in a West Indies middle order, in any international middle order. John Campbell, for that matter, at the top, he should also be left out for the final test match. So whatever language people want to use, it's not about victimizing the players. Some people would like to think. We have this very narrow-minded, insular way of thinking of things, that if somebody doesn't perform, if you drop them, you don't like them, that you're against them. He's being dropped, or he should be dropped, because he's not performing. And what do you say to the other players waiting on the sideline for their opportunities if you're saying, well, he has been gifted this position and he keeps it until time immemorial?
Yeah, but alongside what you've said there, Fazir, why is it from your experience that a coach, a head coach, or a selection panel, however it is comprised, is loath to drop a player like Shai Hope? And I say this because we have seen this movie many times in the past, where an out-of-form player is kept in the team. Why is it that they're loath to drop a player like that? Is it that they look around, look at the potential replacements and saying, I don't see any potential quality among the reserves good enough or substantial enough to cause us to replace this man. Let us keep faith with this man in the hope that he can return to a high water mark registered at some previous point in his career?
I suppose that last point that you made, George, is the relevant one, where they think that, look, this fella is a class act. When you see him at the crease, he scores runs easily in the one-dayers. He had those famous twin hundreds. Surely he's going to do it again. Surely it's going to happen. And you probably tell yourself, he fits nicely within the team. It's a nice setup. There's good chemistry. Everyone gets along. There seems to be a really nice camaraderie in the squad, which is all well and good. But at the end of the day, it's a competitive environment. And while I take all of that into consideration, just to answer one of your other questions and posing it, if you're saying, well, Nkrumah Bonner's not going to score any runs, well, why is he in the squad? If you're saying, well, Shane Mosley is not going to make any runs at the top, well, then don't pick them in the squad. If you're saying Joshua De Silva, his runs in the warm-up match were just warm-up runs, well, then don't have a warm-up. What's the point then of having a traveling squad? What is the point of having reserve players if they are not in contention when the frontline players don't perform?
Fazir, earlier today in the match conference, they spoke to Roddy Estwick, and a journalist posed a question to him about Shannon Gabriel, his fitness, and the fact that, he continues to play. Roddy obviously said, all these things are in hindsight, and he can't pick a player knowing if they will be fit on the day. He says that, they run the fitness test and they decide that they're going to play. We also posed the question to David Brooke. He's one of our analysts that talks on the show. And he said, he feels that if the players are not fully fit, they shouldn't go ahead and play with them. What's your take on that, especially where Shannon Gabriel is concerned and John Campbell?
Whether Shannon Gabriel or anyone else, if you're not 100%, if there's the fear that you're going to break down, I don't think you should be selected. And again, it brings to the fore the point that you've got Shimar Holder, you've got Keon Harding, you've got O'Shane Thomas, you've got a lot of players, some in the main squad, some in the training squad, and I'm sure there'll be no issue of drafting players from the training squad into the test squad. I'm not saying automatically that they should come in or that changes should be made wholesale just because the West Indies lost. But it's a fair consideration whether or not Alzari Joseph is fully fit, whether Shannon Gabriel is fully fit. Should you consider Rakeem Cornwall if it's a dry, dusty Turner going into that final test match? I think all of these considerations are what part and parcel of selection is all about. It's not about dodging the issues or hemming and hawing and saying, well, you're not sure, we're going to wait and see, and so on. Maybe at a public level, you don't really say what's on your mind because that might seem to be in somehow deteriorating a player's confidence or something like that. But surely when it comes to the think tank of the team, they will probably have in their minds already whether there's a question mark over any player, whether it's Gabriel, as in this case in our discussion, and whether or not there's an adequate replacement if it is deemed necessary come the morning of that final test.
Many, when analysing the second test, pointed to the batting and the fact that, we lost the match in the batting. Yesterday, when we spoke to Toby Radford on the show, he highlighted the fact that, he felt our bowlers didn't bowl enough bouncers. He compared it to England bowling approximately 50-odd bouncers, and he felt like if we had turned on the pressure when it came to the bowling, we would not have been in that position. And to me, I get the sense that, he was pointing that we should have worked harder where the bowling was concerned. What's your take on that?
Well, there will always be different arguments, different points to either situation. You concede 469. The automatic view will be that the bowlers didn't bowl particularly well. But if you listen to people, even as the commentators were talking about the action, they were really impressed with the West Indies bowlers trying and trying and trying again. Remember, important catches were put down. Jason Holder put down Dominic Sibley late on that first day, that rain-affected first day. So we can always speculate. It's easy to apportion blame. You can look at the fact that the West Indies were sailing easy along late on the fourth day. Then came that second new ball. They lose 3 wickets in 14 balls to Stuart Broad. They lose 6 wickets for 45 runs. That turns the match. They drop a catch on the final morning that allows Ben Stokes to go flaying away, to give his team runs and time to push for victory. There are a number of variables when you're talking about a sporting event that lasts as long as 4 days plus or 3.5 days. So all of these factors will be worthy of consideration. But I think at the end of the day, when you look at the batting to be dismissed twice in basically 2 days, that would have to be something that you must want to focus on.
Faz, you just mentioned that John Campbell and Shai Hope should be dropped for this Friday third test starting. Who would your replacements be if you were making the decision as a selector?
Shane Mosley at the top of the order and Kruma Bonner to come in the middle order, both to make their test debuts, because I think they are deserving of opportunities. And again, the argument might be put forward, well, how confident are you that they're going to get runs? Well, the point is the ones who are the incumbents aren't getting runs. So even if both were to get pairs, let's say that if that were to happen, would that justify having retained Shai Hope and John Campbell? I don't think so. I think you come to a point in any selection process, and again, because people get so emotional about these things that they think you don't like this one, that you hate this one, you want to get rid of this one. This is a competitive environment. And if you're in a competitive environment, you take the pluses with the minuses, which means that if you're not performing over a consistent period of time and there are others waiting in the wings for an opportunity, it only stands to reason that they be given that opportunity.
Yeah. From your experience, though, looking at how a tour management team operates, my understanding is that while the reserves do have a shot at coming into the squad, the test squad, they would have to be inserted into the 15 first before they would be announced as possible candidates as replacements. Having said that, we are now on to Wednesday, 2 days before the match. Is it that we haven't heard that they have been inserted into the 15, a hint that none of the reserves are being considered?
That may be correct, because as you will recall, it was more than a week before the first test match that we heard from Phil Simmons that Shannon Gabriel has been inserted into the main squad from the training squad. So maybe there is a protocol to that. And as you said correctly, we're less than 48 hours away from the start of the final test. And maybe the fact that we haven't heard anything more or less indicates that there will be no changes to the squad from which the final 11 will be selected, which I think would be disappointing, because I think there's room for some consideration, not just on the batting side, but on the bowling side as well. I'm not saying automatically that you make wholesale changes. Again, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is that if you've got players who you think might be a bit jaded, players who might be just carrying a bit of an injury, carrying a bit of a niggle, the last thing you want, has happened for England at the start of their Ashes series last year, in the summer, is for one of your key bowlers, as in the case of James Anderson, to break down in the first test match, be unable to bowl for most of that match, and that really hampers you in what is a critical test match.
Yeah, so if our thinking is correct then, Faz, that maybe at the moment they're not thinking of the reserves, then a replacement for John Campbell could not be Shane Mosley. If it is that they're going to stay with the 15 that's there and still replace Campbell and Hope, who would be that? What would they do then? What do you think their options could be?
Well, that's the big question. I don't think there are too many options in that regard. If you're talking about the exact squad of 15, and it might very well be that could be their get out of jail free card. That because of they would be seen as the limited options, they would say, well, look, Shai Hope is a class act. John Campbell deserves a fair run. Let's stay with that team. But as I said, I would have thought there would have been the leeway given the exceptional circumstances. But I take your point, Lance.
Fazir, it's been very good talking to you. It's good that the preview for the third test, and you included, coincides with Liverpool's greatest day in 30 years, notwithstanding the European titles that they've won in that time. The Premier League is the Holy Grail. And I just say to you that I had a quick glance back at the Liverpool squad, which won in 89-90. It was a strong British squad, Irishmen in the squad, Englishmen, a Welshman up front, Ian Rush. And you look at the squad now, it's a multinational squad, an Egyptian superstar, a man from Senegal, a Brazilian, coached by a German. There's a Scot there, of course, John Roberts. It seems as if Liverpool always has to have an outstanding squad, an outstanding Scot. And I say this to say, Fazir, that the multinational nature of Liverpool's squad, now bringing them to what they believe they own and they deserve to have every year. It's ironic that they have this squad helping them to achieve this at a time when the world is talking about inclusivity and racial equality and justice. Look at what has helped Liverpool to achieve greatness, and look at what the world is talking about, that people of all shades, of all color, from all creeds, of all races can combine to do something great, not just a select few.
You know, George, we could spend the rest of the show talking about that. I'm glad you brought that out, the Black Lives Matter situation, because let's put it in perspective. The last time Liverpool won that title in 1990, by the way, I was into my first year of marriage. Now I'm a grandfather of 2 boys, so that tells you about the time as well. But at that time, black players were not necessarily welcome at Liverpool Football Club or Liverpool the city. The anti-Islamic feeling, the Islamophobia, was very strong before Mohamed Salah turned up. When Howard Gale, of Jamaican origin, a first black player to play for Liverpool, was involved with the 1981 European Cup against Real Madrid. The star boy of Liverpool in that time, Tommy Smith, was a racist, didn't like black players, and told Howard Gale that to his face. And look at the difference that it is now. So yes, it's a huge change then, from then to now. But honestly, and everyone, I'm sure you're aware, as we had with the Jofra Archer situation and the comments on Instagram, a lot of that racism has transferred to online rather than being on your face.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir. Congratulations. Drink it in, enjoy it, and come and defend it next season. All the best to you, Fazir.
Take care.
Excellent. You know, he speaks of the racism in Liverpool back in the day, and the first black man to play for Liverpool, the first black player to play for England, Lance. I'm testing you. This is just the facts in the moment. The first black player to play for England, the name?
Is it Cunningham?
No.
Not Laurie?
No. He's a former Manchester United player, which is why I said it. Viv Anderson, lads.
Viv Anderson.
Viv Anderson. There you go. Yeah, I just know you forgot. I know you know. All right, Mariah, Manchester City, all the best next season. All right, we take a break. We come back. Oh, just before we go, Mr. Director, please bear with me. I must send special greetings to Cherion Fairweather and her husband Horace. They are huge fans of the show. They don't miss a beat. They are living in Jamaica, and they are committed to the SportsMax zone, the SportsMax overall. They are very much part of the family. And as we hand out glad tidings today on this happy day for Liverpool supporters and other supporters, we have to send a special greetings to Cherion and Horace for their support of the show. It's break time.